Is that okay? I was never really a practicing Muslim, and then I got a scholarship to go to Israel, so I thought I'm better research Islam, find out what it's about, because people are going to be asking me questions. Why do you have to do this? Why do you have to do that? And I wouldn't really know. So I started researching into it, and I started looking into it, and the more I researched, the kind of more sense it made. And then finally, after I think about 2 months of researching, I felt strong enough to be identified as a Muslim. So that was my main reason for putting my hijab on. I used to party, and I used to tell my mum, "Oh, Mum, I'm going out in Leeds tonight," and she'd be like, "Okay, that's fine." And to know that I've come away from all that and journeyed myself, it was really profound and deep for them, I think.
My parents, who are illiterate, didn't have an awareness of education at all. They felt that I was going to be like a traditional Pakistani girl who was going to go through the whole getting married, staying at home, having children, which is fine if you want that. But I didn't want that. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be unique, and I wanted to go out there and get myself an education.
If I were growing up, my mum at times would not take me out to either certain events like a wedding or a party or to certain people's house because it made her feel uncomfortable. For me, right, it's not the disability that counts, it's the ability that counts more.
As a woman working in a restaurant, especially an Indian restaurant, it is quite interesting. You can be a woman running a restaurant and that's fine. But then if you're a woman in a hijab running a restaurant, then really, because it's such a public thing, I think the perception is that women in hijab are not sort of public personas as such. You know, they are more kind of shy and retiring and in the background. And I think that's how people expect you to be because you are in hijab. I think the box I was probably in was, you know, kind of outgoing, well-integrated Asian girl. And suddenly I was in a hijab and it was like, well, what is this about? Because it was post 9/11. And a lot of people said to me, you know, have you just got married or are you about to get married? And I was like, no, I've been married for quite a while. But I think people find it easier to think that, I think especially with hijab, they find it easier to think that you've made that decision because of somebody else rather than because it might be something that you actually want to do.
One of the main challenges for me was being brought up in such a society where people put down or stigmatise women who are divorced or single. Soon after my marriage, we mutually agreed to go our separate ways. You know, I felt content within myself that I did, you know, try my very hardest. And there's always a certain point after which you really can't do any more, and it's best to go your own separate ways amicably, which I think our own religion expresses as well, and gives the woman that right to do that.
Once a woman is married doesn't mean she has become his property. You know, she is an individual and she should be treated as an individual. God has made men and women both. They came from the same creator. They're not identical, but they're equal.
When people make judgments about me, it happens to me every day. You know, what I wear, people make a judgment. They think, right, she's got jeans on, bet she doesn't pray, bet she doesn't observe Ramadan, bet she doesn't do this. But to be honest, I probably do more than the people that do, you know, have the identity of, look at me, I'm a Muslim because I'm wearing a headscarf, I'm wearing a long dress, so I must be a Muslim. So that's the first thing, that's my personal endeavour in this life, to put that right. Just because this is how I dress does not mean that I think like that or I think like this.
You don't have to call somebody a jihadist just because they're wearing a scarf. And what is a jihadist? The simple term hijab has been transformed into hijabi. What's a hijabi? Isn't oh, that hijabi came and that hijabi went and that hijabi talking about Palestine and being portraying. What's a hijabi? My hijab, my headscarf, or the way I wear my clothes has been turned into a terminology that has been spreading and used by various media outlets.
It's easy to label people, it's easy to characterise and stereotype people, because if you don't, then perhaps you'd have to take the time to learn about what their culture and what their religion's about. And who wants to do that?
I, born and brought in this country, I consider myself British. When I fill forms in, I don't put other or Pakistani or which box do you go in, I put British because I was born here, I think in English, I speak in English. I had an arranged marriage and I was very much part of that process. I'm still married to him today, so a bit of a testament to the success of that. So it was very, very important to us to try and make that distinction between what a forced marriage is and what an arranged marriage is, and we managed to do that.
I do consider Bradford home, but I do kind of know that inside me there's another home, and I don't see the two homes that far apart. We're in an age and world where they're so close. Yes, I'm Palestinian, but also I've lived here for as long as I can remember, really. And so this is something that kind of makes part of me British, but also I know that the blood that runs in my veins is Palestinian blood.
The raft of legislation, the anti-terror legislation that we have had, has been a bit of a knee-jerk reaction because we obviously had 9/11, we had 7/7. From a community point of view, they've just been bombarded with all this new police powers, extension on detention powers, and the government, instead of having a look at seeing what's the heart of the problem, has just clamped down. As if you discipline a naughty child, they've gone in there full throttle instead of saying, right, can we sit back and see where we are going wrong?
Unfortunately, on certain occasions, as a mother, I've come across the direct consequences of that. My son, he's 21, he went on a weekend to Barcelona. That weekend, there were some arrests made in Barcelona on the terrorism charges. And when they landed at Newcastle Airport, they were actually met by, as my son has told me since, Men in Black, taken away and questioned for a good couple of hours. And the first time, I think in his life, he experienced that he was British, and he always kind of feel like the British passport protects you. But in his home country, he actually felt a bit of an alien, and he had to justify why he'd gone on holiday for a brief weekend.
I always think as Muslims you have some kind of, you will inevitably feel some kind of belonging to other Muslims. That's what I love that about being a Muslim, and not hate it, but it gets to you sometimes that you can't help but feel like you have some kind of responsibility to do something about it.
And I think as Muslim women now, as not just mothers of first generation, but second and third generation, I think we've got an absolute key role to play, not just in our family situations, but I think in public life. It's about time Muslim women actually stepped forward and said, here is the voice, but please listen to us and make appropriate decisions. I think it's moving the other way now, and that's what I'd really like to see more and more happening.
We're all still individuals. We're not just Muslims. It's a big part of us, but we're much more than that.
I would like to be able to see a time where there's less labels and more emphasis on individuality.
If I was going to choose between living in Palestine and living in Bradford, then I would probably choose Palestine, because I want Palestine to rise to the same level as the rest of the world. And until that happens, I'm probably Palestinian all the way, / British.
And if I can be a role model to other women, other young women in today's society, my message to them would be really to follow their dream. If they have a passion, if they have a desire, then go for it and see it through.
First thoughts?
Right now, the first thought.
Does it make sense?